Hey everyone, welcome back. Sports Talks podcast. I'm literally just having the conversation about the podcast pre-conversation. So Miles is with us today, and he's going to be a wonderful guest. But I've just been telling Miles exactly what I'm going to talk about right now, which is introducing Miles and welcoming you back to listening to this podcast. But the interesting thing about that, it just becomes a really artificial introduction. But what Miles doesn't know, or he may know, is that this is the first podcast I've had with a guest on for maybe 3 years, maybe pre-COVID, even before that. So he doesn't know that. He does now. How he's laughing because he's like, "Oh, shit."
Thanks for the added pressure.
Yes. So so as if you don't know, Miles, welcome to the show. This is the Sports Talks podcast. Thank you for being a guest. I'm really looking forward to talking about you, basically, for the next half an hour.
well, thanks for having me on. I'm not quite sure how you're going to drag it out for that long, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll find ways.
Yeah, good. And I'm really glad we got over the awkwardness of the first part of a podcast, because I've been on a few podcasts, and it's so bad. It's like you're having a conversation and then, oh, we're recording now. Welcome to my podcast. It's like we've never spoke together. Or you can go on the other end of the extreme, where I was on a podcast, and I had to do 3 phone calls with that person and answer a spreadsheet of questions before we even went on the podcast.
Oh, that's nuts.
And I was like, what happened to just having a fucking beer and a chat? You know, and I say beer, and today it's peppermint tea with licorice in it because I've got a tummy ache, but that's about it.
Living life on the edge.
I know, mate. I know. I'll tell you, actually,
I was going to sell it as a speed cocktail. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speed cocktail. I'm going to a wedding this weekend, and I literally just spent the last 3 hours running around Brent Cross shopping centre trying to find a bloody suit. And I hopefully anyone listening to this that lifts weights or is not shaped like a Lego man knows how difficult it is to buy a suit.
It is a challenge, hence why I buy Primark stretchy jeans.
Right.
And even more so because of the dad bod as well, slowly making an appearance. So they need to be even stretchier these days.
Long live Stretch Fit, because like it's function. It's just pure function. Like we're in the fitness space, the health and performance space, and it's nice to be able to dress and stuff like that. But when you're squatting and you've been lifting weights, like your thighs are thick. That's how we attract our females, because they get thick thighs and they love it. But then it's like, well, I need clothes to go on a date. I need to find stuff that fits. And then also it's the chance of, well, doing what we do. I literally had the conversation with the guy I was coaching this morning, and I was like, I'm probably going to start in John Lewis and see what I can come up with. And I've got a couple of suits from like Moss Brothers and stuff that I've spent a bit more money on that I've had tailored, but they just collect dust and you probably wear them 3 times in 5 years. So if I can spend an even £100, get myself squared away, then I'm sorted, and it fits. Money. And do you know who came up trumps today for me? TK Maxx.
Brilliant. Gotta love TK Maxx.
I was furious. People are going to be so bored, but I don't care. But I was furious, right? Because I'd just been flying around, and since COVID as well, like lots of people in big spaces is quite chaotic. I do experience that it is a bit chaotic, even more so. And I mean, I'm 6'4", and it's just like, get the fuck out of my way, you annoying people. And then it's like, don't you have anything better to do on a Tuesday afternoon than be walking around shops? But anyway, and I was furious. I was in my car. I was like, I need a suit this weekend. Mrs. is going to go mad. It's her friend's wedding. We're down in Bournemouth. We've got to get something. And I'm on the roundabout, and opposite Brent's Cross, there's TK Maxx. And I was like, indicate. I'm going in. straight upstairs, and you can imagine me, I'm sweating. That's how I was power walking around the shopping centre. I was sweating trying to find this suit, and then went straight up, picked up a 42, and I was like, not a chance. It was a really nice turquoise suit. Pop that down, and then look down the line, because it's like a bit of a jumble sale, TK Maxx, and this blue shoulder just popping out. I was like, that's the bastard. Like, and there are these two women like looking at suits, obviously I think for their son or something. I was like, excuse me, arm straight through, straight past. What's like, I'm having that one.
Not the old ladies out the way.
100%.
Put that strength training to use.
No, 14 years of semi-pro rugby, I know how to run a hard line. so Miles, right? Questions. Let's do some questions. Let's actually get to people to know you rather than my suits. What people won't know, they'll probably do if they've read the description. Most people don't read podcast descriptions. It's just for Google rankings. You used to play golf. You still play a bit of golf. Do you want to tell us how you got involved in golf?
No. Basically, my dad's a very keen golfer. Was a very good golfer. His claim to fame is on a junior open board at a golf club. Nick Faldo, one of the sort of greatest players or greatest British players of all time, won it the year before he did. So he's got N Faldo, year below G Collins. My grandma plays golf, or did play golf. She played golf up until she's 90, which is still going at 94, but got a problem hip. So golf's in the blood, basically.
Yeah. And what age did you start playing?
There's pictures of me swinging a little plastic club at the age of 2 in the back garden. So, from an early age. But I've always lived in the sticks. So I've always been quite a long way from a golf club, even though I've sort of always had the enthusiasm for it. Just I was always hitting balls in the field every time, or nicking my dad's golf club every time, and then when he'd hit some balls.
Yeah, it reminds me of my auntie, like my nan's sister. So it would be my auntie. I don't know. But she was a keen golfer, and she used to live in Florida. So she married an American after the war. She was a nurse. And classic nurse marries a soldier, goes off to America, right? But she used to come, when she used to fly over periodically, my parents were so angry with her because she brought her clubs and we had an apple tree. And she taught us how to make applesauce. You can only imagine, can't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to do something similar. You got to whack the apples.
Yeah.
Piss my grandma off, that's for sure. Oh, those are good apples.
That's so good. And so obviously from a young age playing golf, like or experimenting with golf. Did you play any other sports or anything? Because like most S&C coaches, performance coaches, there's usually a mess of sport before we do what we love to do now.
Sort of. I did play a bit of rugby at school. My school didn't have a football team. They were only interested in hockey, a bit of cricket. I was useless at cricket. And then, the rugby that I did play, unfortunately, I was pretty small and not exactly, I wasn't massively gung-ho. So I was always the one that, and they always put me at fullback as well. So when some big bugger goes through the line, they'd be like, crap, I've got to try and stop this dude. Yeah. You carry on, mate. I'm all right. Yeah. I quite like my collarbone. And then actually, it was my school, like they stopped our year 10 rugby stopped because we couldn't get enough players.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty poor from that side of things. Yeah. But other than that, it was just pretty much golf, to be honest. I liked playing other sports, like doing track and field and stuff like that. But I was small. Didn't start growing until I actually left school, so I wasn't fast. I wasn't physically. I didn't have the physical traits that some other guys did. So,
but you're not small now, are you? You're not short.
No, see, I from the 8 when I got to about just before 17, something like that. I grew 6 inches in the space of about 18 months. So I went from 5'6" to 6 foot in the space of 18 months.
Wow.
There's a picture of me somewhere deep down on Facebook where it's my school leaving photo, and most people think it was the day that I started. But yeah, now I'm 6'2", and you wouldn't think about it. But yeah, no, I was quite a small kid.
Nice. And then it kind of, so from there, I guess this stuff is quite interesting because, you know, I'm a big psychology fan and behaviorist fan. And so, like, in terms of your approach, I mean, I was small and stuck out on the wing, and I still don't like to tackle people. And so, but in terms of obviously like family influence and bits and pieces from golf, not having, you know, at a young age, if I can piece the timeline, not having like natural genetics on your side before you've grown, did you have to approach playing in a different way?
From a golf perspective, I guess, I know I was never even that good as a youngster, to be honest. It was more something when I was able to put some time into it. But yeah, sort of when you don't have physicality in regards to from a golfing perspective, it all then lies down to the skill side. So it's like with all other sports, like even with rugby, like if you're not big, then you then got to be one, pretty damn aggressive and sure of yourself, but then also you have to be damn good at tackling. You have to learn to tackle properly. So it's the same thing when it comes to golf, but it's just slightly different. So for instance, for me, it would be, I was very good at putting. So you don't have to be big and strong. Anyone can hold a putt. So it's just that skill aspect. So those were the things you sort of had to get good at. I found when I didn't have the physicality side.
I guess there's like, because what a lot of, and we've had conversations about this in the past as well, but the physical rigor of golf is quite taxing.
Yeah, no, definitely can be, but when you're playing full time, so when you're on the road, so for instance, when I was playing full time, I was driving around the UK and stuff and doing a little bit in Europe. But you'll be going, say if it's a 3-day event and it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're driving to the event on Monday, playing a practice round. You then potentially got a pro-am on a Tuesday, and then you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday tournament, and then you're either back home or off to the next one. And when you're driving to all these events, it's actually very mentally and physically draining, even though you're just thinking, oh, you walk around a golf course, you only hitting a few golf shots. It's not that tough, but actually, I certainly found when I got to a point when I was sort of 27 or so, it really then started to affect me more because obviously I've got all the good stuff flowing around you and once you hit a certain point. So
all the piss and vinegar.
Yeah, precisely. So yeah, and then also nowadays people are trying to hit it further and trying to get bigger and stronger. So if you're trying to put essentially more effort into it and you're doing that more often, there's that added physicality to it as well.
Yeah. So close that gap. I know we've jumped ahead and that's my fault, but close that gap from leaving school, got that growth spurt, and then kind of actually sort of focusing on golf. How did that all come about to end up? Because a lot of people may not know how you end up playing at a professional level or full-time level of golf. Like, how does that even work? And how does your story tell that?
Well, there are two ways of becoming a professional golfer. One, you have to get sort of a half decent standard as an amateur. You can get quite a few people, like you see lots of coaches, they will go and do their PGA. So they'll get to a handicap of 4, they'll go or below, they'll go and do their PGA, which is like a university degree, and you work in a shop at the same time, you do a bit of coaching, stuff like that. And you can play some local events. But then sort of the people like the Rory McIlroys and stuff like that, pardon me, and they will get to a standard, they'll want to turn pro, they'll enter a professional event. And when you get to a professional event, as an amateur, they give you a piece of paper and say, would you like to stay as an amateur or do you want to turn professional? And you just tick whichever box you want. So literally I turned up to an event, entered the first professional event I played in, I wanted to stay amateur. So I did that because it was qualifying school. I just wanted to see how I got on. And then the next one, which was final stage for qualifying school for the tour that I played on, I just ticked the box and said I was a professional, and that was it. And that was 2011. You'd think there's a bit more to it, but it's literally just ticking a box. Get to a standard, enter an event, tick a box.
Well, I thought that would take up about 5 minutes.
It's not that exciting. But the stuff that takes longer is the getting to that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting to that standard.
Absolutely.
That's where it all lies.
And that's what I want to dig into a little bit more. So when did you go? When did you say to yourself, like, I'm going to, really have because there's some point in, whether it's conscious or not, that we say, do you know what? I'm just going to try and be the best I can be at this. And do you remember when that was?
And I was still in school at that point. I was quite fortunate where I went to a golf college. So this is something that, so instead of sixth form, I went to a golf college. So basically you did BTEC in sport, but then there was coaching sort of in and around. It was based at a golf club. So you got to practice every day. You see a coach 3 times a week. And in like a group setting, there's 20 of us at the start. So just before that, when I heard about this thing, I was just like, I really want to do this. I wasn't at a good enough standard, but I really wanted to give it a go. So hence why I ended up doing that. I was very fortunate that I was able to do that.
So you were like 17, 18?
That was when I was 16. So 16. That was literally just straight after school.
GCSEs, and that would have been your A levels type.
Correct.
Time. Yeah.
Correct. So I did that for 2 years, and then stayed playing amateur stuff a few years. Because what was that? 2005. I started that. Finished 2007. And then I was amateur for a few years stayed amateur for a few years after that, tried to plan as many events as I could, bigger events, and then then turned pro in 2011. But that sort of beginning of 2005 was when I thought, right, I really want to try and play golf for a living.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting. I went to BTEC. I did BTEC, and then also when I worked at WASP with the ACE program, they do BTECs or whatever around that and that coaching. And it's like the accelerated growth that you get out of those programs is pretty fast. Because you get lots of exposure.
It's pretty good. I mean, the good thing was being in and around, like being at golf club every day, being able to practice every day, having sort of pretty much daily interactions with coaches and stuff like that. That was really good. The BTEC side was almost for me, like the college that I went to no longer exists. So, but it was very much turn up, do some more work. It wasn't really. And it maybe doesn't sound like the same experience that you had, because like the college that I went to, I don't know if it was the same with you, but we were like paying for this separately. This was a private thing. Okay. Quite a lot of the kids there would be very much, they're just here to piss around. So hence why we ended up, hence why we ended up with 8 or 9 people finishing the 2 years, and started off with about 18, 20.
Yeah. That's fair. Like with the WASP stuff, it's with the ACE program, you trial to get into it. It's free education, but you trial. And like one of the guys,
you've got to earn that and you respect it more. Whereas this was actually, no, mummy and daddy have paid for this. Well, we're just going to piss around and do all sorts of stupid things. So there were some of us that took it seriously. Some others didn't.
Yeah, well, it's the same. And I remember at that age, there is a real clear distinction between the ones that end up like playing good level, one of the guys, and the ones that don't, like they just literally fall off. And some of them are so talented and they're just idiots. Like they're just, their social network around them, and it's just not strong enough to be like, there's all of those sorts of things. But I mean, one of the guys that was in my second year when I was in Ace, Jack Willis, plays for England, one of the best players in the world now. It's like, and he was playing at Reading Rugby Club, and he didn't come from private school, and the ones that do, unfortunately, the public school is the ones that do. A lot of them are just like hot air, and it takes a certain type, and obviously you're that type because you grew and you ended up playing. You tick the box, which I think is, I'm going to be a professional, and I think it's amazing because it must have been quite like, I don't know whether you think about it now, quite an empowering decision. It's like, I'm professional and I'm doing this full time.
Yeah. It's a funny one. It's, I guess, or as you know from the conversations that we've had, I'm always the person to talk. So I'm always the one talking things down. So, and then also making things bigger in my head. So for me, it's very much, yes, it was fairly empowering. But it was just the old talk it down. Well, play well enough. It doesn't really matter. It's the same game, which essentially it is. It is the same game. So you just have the opportunity to win money at the end of it rather than, and pay more money for it as well. You pay a lot more for your entry fees, especially on the lower levels. But yeah, no, I was always the one sort of talking it down rather than thinking, oh yeah, this is really empowering. But yeah, there was a certain bit of satisfaction of saying the first little bit, oh yeah, I'm professional.
Yeah, no, the
but
ego.
Then there was also the bit of, but there was also the fact of some people thought it was the wrong time for me to turn professional. So then it was like, right, okay, well, I've got all this edit, and almost just try and prove them wrong.
Yeah, a bit of motivation there.
Just a bit.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of it's quite interesting because there is that fine line, and there is that clear distinction. It's I played semi-professional and was fortunate enough to get paid to play rugby for a long time, like good beer money. But as soon as things change, people change. As soon as it becomes, there's money now. You had the opportunity to earn money from this, and however big it is or however small, it's still money. And obviously, we attach a lot of money, lots of value to money, and so then I always found it took a different dimension. It took a different approach. And did you notice, I know you said like other people would criticize your decision, but who cares? But did you notice in yourself, when you're on the, did you win money playing, or on that brink of winning money playing? Did you notice that come into play?
Well, my first year as a pro was awful. So I missed every single cut my first year as a pro. So you could say it's probably a bit too early for me to turn pro, but you learn out of it. But yeah, so going back to what you're saying, when it comes to a point where you're having a bad year, and then, say for instance, on average, a tournament week could cost about, let's say on average, if you've got good friends you can travel with, between 600 quid and 800 quid an event. And that's in the UK. If you're playing stuff sort of abroad, more money, well, not yes and no, it's more money, but you get hit with withholding tax with your winnings. So that's not fun. So when you're forking out that amount of money each week, so let's say for instance 700 quid, and then you're playing 15 events, say on average, probably going to be more than 15 events. We say 15 events a year at that price. That's a decent whack.
Oh,
and to earn, because this was sort of third tier tour, so to get that money back you would probably have to finish 15th out of 156 people.
Wow.
So
slim odds.
And then if you make the cut when I turned pro, you'd literally get, there was about 150, 200 quid for making the cut, and that's the top 50 out of the 156. So if you're having a bad year, your funds can deplete pretty damn quickly, and you're thinking, right, on the brink of making the cut. It's like, well, if I don't make the cut, I'm making no money, or I'm not getting that extra couple of hundred quid, which I actually sort of need, and to sort of just help a little bit. It helps the state of mind.
Yeah.
So yes, from that side of things, there's definitely a bit more on it, shall we say, and the pressure of playing for money. Especially when, maybe it might have been too early for me to turn pro, but there's a massive learning curve for me, and I improved from there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a reason why they call things baptisms of fire, don't they?
Yeah, precisely.
Absolutely. Precisely. And so first year pro didn't go too well. And how old are you then?
22.
So 22. First year didn't go too well. And then what happened next?
And then that winter, I decided to get in contact as a trainer at my golf club gym. Contact with him, started training, which in the end, sort of, so that's the start of me going down the road that I'm now going on.
That's S&C. So yeah, that was weight training.
Yeah. So strength training. So currently in the process of, I need to finish off my UKSCA stuff. So just got to sort those bits out. But yeah, so down the fitness road. So, but it's all about, okay, where can I find all these little improvements?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was very much, right, I need to get fitter and stronger to then help my performance. And then hopefully that will equate to then like getting stronger and stuff, injury prevention, hitting the ball further, all these types of things.
At that time, sorry, it's a really important point, because at that time, did you have a reference point to say, that's what I should be doing?
No.
So you just, you made a logical assumption that potentially if you started strength training, that it may help.
Yeah, I mean, I'd done a tiny bit before that, a few years previous when I was at the golf college, but it was very much that basically there's a big fitness thing sort of in the golfing world, and it's owned by essentially a equipment company, have their own fitness thing basically.
Okay.
It's a load of shite.
Okay.
It's all about movement screens and stuff like that, and stretching and all sorts. So I did all that way back when, and that didn't make me get a better golfer, even though I used all the tests.
And that would probably help, like a 60-year-old person who is degenerative from life, not someone who, and that's kind of because the equipment company want them to buy their clubs and do their fitness and keep spending that buying wheel. But for someone like you trying to progress and from that high-end performance end, it was like, right, I want to take this to the next level.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, it's now in the past sort of 5-6 years that people, like this guy called Mark Brody, analysed all the stats from the PGA Tour. Actually, they realised that hitting the ball further helps earnings, helps your score. So hitting it 20 yards further off the tee, I think you gain about 0.75 strokes on the field by hitting it 20 yards further. That's over the course of, say, a 4-round tournament, which obviously, like PGA Tours, they are. So then you're gaining, 3 strokes a round? Sorry, 3 strokes a tournament. And when you're playing for big money, I think they worked it out. So between Hideki Matsuyama and Rory McIlroy, everyone knows Rory McIlroy. So basically, Rory hits it 20 yards further than Hideki on that. I think it was like 2018, 2019 season. Rory earned $1.6 million more than Hideki did. and you look at all the things, the people who hit it the furthest are generally top of the money list.
Yeah, that's all the money. That's
that's a hell of a lot of money. Yeah,
that's the real
so
money.
and if you can hit it over 300 yards, you've got a very good chance. Well, you're in the best position, really.
Yeah.
So, and it's not until sort of the last couple of years that people are now starting to really push beyond that barrier, or most people are trying to get to that barrier and push beyond it. Whereas before it was very much, no, you've got to find fairways. You've got to think of it more of a skill thing, rather than actually certain parts of it are skill based, and you need those skills. But actually, off the tee, I liken it to being like a shot putter or a javelin or hammer thrower. You've got to be bloody strong and powerful, and it's essentially a throwing sport.
That's a bloody great analogy.
So lots of mine looking.
As soon as you say shot put, I'm like golf, like, and I kind of have a good understanding of the kinematics of the swing and stuff. But as soon as you say shot put, I'm like, Christ, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and like for instance, that's most people will probably know Chad Wesley Smith, Juggernaut Training System. Shot putter. He's now a king golfer. I looked at some of his things, and he swings a 7-iron at over 100 miles an hour, and it's just like he's a big old lump like this.
Yeah,
he can rotate because he can rotate a bit, and he's also got some mass behind him. But because he's got that sort of movement pattern of rotation, even though he's been a powerlifter for years now, but he's still got that movement pattern. He can actually be a decent golfer and hits it a good long way.
Yeah, so rotational velocity and stuff.
Yeah, so and there's lots of stuff like using the ground, like ground reaction forces and all this type of stuff. So
that's boring. No, I want to know what happened to you. We'll talk about it. We will. Sorry, but I want to know what happened to you. I want to know from when you started strength training, like what changed for you, because obviously now you're trying to do. You're doing this for other people. So what changed? Because I'm interested that you had no real frame of reference, but you had a hunch. So how did it go? And then we can start talking about all the nuts and bolts off the bat.
Well, so doing that for a couple of years with my trainer at the time, noticed some difference. Not that noticeable, but then we didn't really have much things to measure. TrackMan wasn't around as much then, or FlightScope. So basically radar, ball tracking devices that measure clubhead speed, ball speed, all these types of things. So they sort of weren't around that much then. And then I ended up switching to a friend of mine, doing some coaching. It was a bit more CrossFit-y. Didn't do CrossFit, but it was a little bit more that way, just for a bit of change. But I did notice some gains there. I mean, I went from I think I started off probably swinging at probably about 105 miles an hour to then being at around 115, which is quite a jump. So 10 miles for every mile an hour clubhead speed, it equates to about 2 to 3 mile an hour ball speed. So that's about 10 mile an hour clubhead speed is about 20 to 30 yards gain in distance. So
that's not
but
short.
It's accumulation over time.
That's decent.
So that's a decent amount. But because I didn't have anything to measure it by, I didn't see it quite as much. And then he then stopped training people. A friend of mine, he was a physio at my golf club. He's now the head S&C coach for the European Tour, or DP World Tour, is it now? He put me in contact with Mr. Wayland. Honestly, how we know each other. So a good friend. Now, so started training with him, and that's where I saw the big changes. So having people who knew had no real background in golf, worked with a couple of golfers, but he was a damn good S&C. He's a damn good S&C coach. I have a lot of respect for him, and I put him right up here in the S&C world, and just having good, solid training and people who know what they're trying to achieve with an athlete. I then went from probably maxing out about just before I saw him, I think I was about 115 to 116 clubhead speed. Max out. When last full season I played, I was maxing out at 130, 132. And obviously, as we know, when you get to a certain point, it's harder to get those gains. So to be able to get an extra 15 mile an hour when I've already made a gain of 10 is pretty damn good going. So that was the big thing for me.
And how was that on the fairway? Because I'm really like, why I love our conversations. I'm so, because you're coaching and but you've been through a great process, but you understand the other side of it. It's like, you know, when you make that tackle or you just stick it and it's like, fuck, that's so good. That feels so good. Do you remember when you, after some of those improvements, getting back out on the fairway and like feeling that change in your body, all from something that seems illogical to some people? It's like, oh, get strong and you'll hit the ball further, because they don't understand physics. We know physics. But how at that time, where was that epiphany moment? That's what I'm looking for.
I think we all sort of get these epiphany moments when we do things with our friends or people that we played with beforehand. So my first year as a pro, good friend of mine. So he used to hit it sort of a decent distance further than me, probably sort of 15 to 20 yards. Maybe even a touch more at times. So I didn't play with him for quite a few years. He managed to work his way up onto the main tour and stuff. And then I played with him, probably, I think I played with him again sort of 2015, 16, give or take. No, 16, 17. It was around that time, sorry. After I'd been doing a bit of training with Will, and then it was just like, I was hitting 20 past him.
Wow.
And then the look on his face of like, where the fuck has this come from?
Yeah.
It was very much, this is quite satisfying. And being that bit and like hitting a club less than him into holes, like on the same par 3 where everyone's hitting the same distance. It's just like, what are you hitting? Oh yeah, I'm okay. Well, I'm hitting one less. Not bragging, just like, this is what I'm hitting. So, and then playing with friends and stuff like in practice rounds. So like coming back and it's like, it quite a long way by some people at the time. I went from being one of the shorter ones to being one of the longer ones, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And that like that there is why, it supports that mission that you're on, which is amazing. And so from then in a competition environment, obviously you saw bigger changes. So your rankings went up and your standings went up. And do you know, like, because I'm giving you carte blanche to tell me how good you are. So what was that change? Because, your mate that you're hitting the ball past now, like he's in the dust. What about in the competition arena?
Scores improved. I was contending in more tournaments. So I won more money. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve in the sport. Those are all things that I focused on the wrong things, shall we say. I got some good advice when I caddied for a guy in a seniors event. He said, golf is driving and putting. As long as you get off the tee and can hold putts, you're fine. It's like, what does a 60-year-old bloke playing on the seniors tour know? Turns out after I stopped playing, he was right. Definitely earn more money. It was definitely contending more. It definitely had a good old effect on playing, that's for sure.
So humble. I'd be like, right, this guy fucking smashed him. That's what I'd be saying. But it's really the irony as well. It's like, now with your the devotion to the S&C side of things, and I'll hold it to that. You said you'd never retired. You're not retired yet from golf, so I'm holding you to that. But but now, like, and this is where we can get like a bit technical and a bit fancy for the last sort of 3 to 4 minutes, and you now know that lots of science and practical application for S&C to improve golfing. And what I think is amazing, I saw it in your video, and we spoke, is you built your own gym in your back garden, and you've got this hybrid performance facility because you're doing all the club head speed stuff, and then they can go in the gym, and then they can supplement it. It's amazing. So, what do you now know from science and from your own study, that what are the big rocks that you need to improve in golf to improve that club head speed and improve that distance?
Well, if we're on about purely from a club head speed point of view, it's all about, well, there are lots of little nuances to it, but big keys are vertical force production. So there's a big correlation with vertical jump or counter movement jump impulse and club head speed. And if you can increase that, there's a study done by Jack Wells and Dan Coughlin. If you can increase your counter movement jump impulse by 41 newtons, that you can expect a probably 3 to 4 mile an hour jump in club head speed. So that's a useful metric to have. And then I would say that's the biggest one when it comes to club head speed. The main one is more making people more robust. This is the one thing that obviously Mr. Whalen goes on about, and it's drummed into my head. All about robustness. You've got to have a robust athlete. You've got to be able to turn up and deal with the demands that are put on your body. So you'll know, getting stronger helps with injury prevention and all these types of things. So those are the two main factors I find when it comes to improving performance, is being able to and physically able to play all the events you need to play in, and then being able to hit it as far as you bloody can.
No, I love it, because that's a huge thing. Because if you think of golfers, like it's the ignorance of my rugby brain is going to say golfers are weak. That's basically what it's going to say.
Yeah, they are.
It's not but for someone like you, you're not. You're strong. You're really fucking strong, and you can hit a ball really fast because it's like sprinting as well. It's violent actions with finesse, and you have to be able to be a beast in that. And
the thing is, like with golfers, so for instance, golf is renowned for sort of low back problems and sort of lots of injury or little injuries, but most of those come about because they're not strong enough. All they do is hit balls. Like I mean, I don't know much about this side of things, but I know one of physios, Alex, was talking about it when Will and I did a presentation on S&C for golf, and basically talking about how much force the spine can sort of tolerate when it's stacked on top of itself, but when you add rotation, it then becomes it can handle far less. So it's like, well, if you're not strong enough and your body can't take these loads that you're putting it under, and you're going to hit if you're going to hit hundreds of balls a week, some people hit hundreds of balls a day, you're going to do that, and you're not strong.
How many a day?
You're going to have some problems. Well, people hit hundreds. Vijay Singh was reported to hit. He was a ridiculous practicer. He would hit almost like over 1,000 golf balls a day. That's on the far end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But if you're not physically able to deal with those demands, then you're going to struggle. And there's a long drive guy called.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, Karen.
Sorry. No, you go.
Well, there's a long drive guy called Joe Miller who won World Long Drive Championship, I think, once or twice. But he's a massive dude, and he can deal with the high volumes of long drive practice, essentially. But he's probably the only one who's able to do that. But he's a massive dude, and you think
he's a monster.
He's more like a bodybuilder. Yeah, he's an absolute monster.
Yeah.
And he can deal with high amounts of load, but he's trained himself to be able to do it.
Yeah, because he's got the engine for it, 100%. And then what about your like standard club golfer as well? Just so not your vocation, because you can't play golf as a vocation. Like, we definitely know that. Like, but what about that guy who's got a job and who, plays on the weekends, or, how many, like, there's got to be, even at the top end, you say culturally it's adjusting to it, but the sport itself has to be crying out for this type of information.
Yeah, now it helps everyone. At the end of the day, if you make people more robust in general, able to deal with the demands of what they put on their body. So being able to train for it, even for the average Joe, like trying to get my dad down the gym is a bit tricky at times. But there is definitely a benefit for everyone.
Yeah.
A huge benefit. And if an average golfer can increase their club speed by a bit and feel better at the end of the round, they're going to perform better, and they're not going to feel as tired after it as they would do before.
Yeah.
Have the aches and pains that some of them do. Some people will have a practice session, hit 100 balls, and be like, "Oh, why do I ache?" Like, well, you hit 100 balls once a month. What do you expect?
Yeah, and I bet they don't know what it feels like to tear an oblique, because that hurts.
No.
That really hurts.
Yeah, I hope I don't have to go through that one.
Yeah, it's massive. Oh, wow. Like, I think, hopefully people listen to this and taken lots of kind of insight into the journey of someone who played professionally and has now taken what he's learned and been nurtured it and trying to give it back in his own facility, his own performance, and helping golfers. I think it's a wonderful story. And, if you'd come back on at another time, we could actually do like a deep dive into this stuff at a bit more detail and open up the box of tricks, as it were, if that would be good for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely up for that.
I love it because you're doing some, as I said, you're doing some great things, for the game. There's enough golfers to go around, everyone, isn't there?
Quite a few.
Yeah, and so if what's your social media? What's your Instagram? People want to follow you.
I think it's now Collins Golf. I mean, Collins. That was that was something that a friend of mine, when I was out, I had some friends out in Arizona, and they said, when you turn pro, they'll be going, now Collins on TV, like with the commentators, or Collins now. So that's I'll run with it.
Yeah, love it. So if you want to learn more about Miles and Collins Golf, get over to his Instagram. But then also, if you want to learn more about his story and how he built and all of the insight into that, I know there's some wonderful content for you to dig into there, which is really insightful. So that's it for Sports Talks podcast with Miles Collins Golf for the day. I hope you listen, subscribe, tell your friends, do everything you like. If you want to work with me as a mentoring, then send me a message. If you want to join Legacy, you want to do those things, you want to learn how to play golf, don't ask me, ask Miles, and I will speak to you very soon. Thank you very much as always.